SubhanAllah. First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakallah Khayr for having me here in your beautiful town of Cape Town. SubhanAllah, it's such a beautiful place that I already feel like I'm at home. And may Allah bless you and reward you and keep you all patient and steadfast together here. You know, so at the back, people always ask me, where's your script? What are you going to talk about? And I always say, there's only one thing I'm going to talk about, and that is death, the destroyer of pleasure. Do I have a script? No, I don't have a script. I just talk from my heart. I talk from what I know. I talk for what I see every single day of my life. And as many of you watch on the screen, on social media, day to day, what we do, it's happening everywhere around the world. This is just one part of it, what you see. You know, today I had the opportunity to go to a cemetery. I think it was called Mowbray Cemetery or something. And subhanAllah, just walking around the cemetery, it puts you back into a state of humbleness. Reading all those names. You know, some of those names were the same names that we share. And I was reading the ages, how many of them have been in their grave longer than they lived. And I said, you know, everywhere you go around the world, it's all the same thing. It's names on a tombstone. And I had a brother next to me and he said to me, you know, this is my whole family all buried here. And I said, show me. And I went up there and I looked and we moved a bit of the grass and a little headstone showed up. And he goes, oh, that's my uncle. And I said, subhanAllah, it was a little bit of grass had covered the headstone. And I said, when your uncle was alive, he had an address, he had a home, he had a job, he had status, he had something to do every day. We walked past it and it was just covered in grass. And I thought, why do we walk on this earth with all this pride, thinking that we're going to be here forever, thinking that, you know what, I've got a long time to go before I die because I'm still young. But I'm going to tell you something. Death doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're young, if you're old, if you're rich, if you're poor. It doesn't even care if you're sick or you're strong. When your time's up, your time's up. And believe me, nothing will delay it because every single person has a date with death. Every single one of us has a date written when we are going to die. And that is the reality, that we will all slowly drift off and move slowly into the next world, into the life of the barzakh. So we ask ourselves every single day, are we ready to meet our Creator? Are we ready to face Allah and seeing what our last actions were? And you know, I speak for myself every day, that I say to myself, Ya Allah, take me away when you're pleased with me. And I hope that everybody says the same thing. You know, subhanAllah, my brothers and sisters, you know, if a lot of you guys obviously know a lot of the stories that we see, but what got me into doing what I did, I've been doing this now for nearly 30 years. From when I was 17 years old, when I first got my license, the first job I did was collecting dead bodies from the morgues. And at 17 years old, it was good to earn money back then. I had no idea about what I was doing. To me, it was getting an extra. You know, I used to supposed to take 2 people with me to pick up a dead body. I used to go do it on my own because I was greedy. I wanted all the money. And it was a good thing because it made me ponder a lot. It made me think. Because when I'll tell you something. The morgues in the hospitals are not in the front entrance, in the most prettiest place of a hospital. They're down below or they're at the back near the dumpsters. They're in a place that's out of sight, out of mind. So when I used to go to these morgues at 1, 2 a.m. to pick up a deceased, I used to put him in the van and I used to drive back to the mosque and I used to open the garage doors and I used to lay that deceased on the table. And every single time I would look back at that deceased and I'd say to myself, he was alive just a few hours ago. Where is he now? What's he seeing now? This was my mindset back then. So I used to hold my hands up and make a dua from whatever words I knew, thinking to myself, maybe I am the only person in the world right now making dua for this man. And as time progressed, and I became a grave digger. For about 15 years, I was digging graves. And digging graves, you can take 2 things out of it. You can just say, I'm digging a hole, or I'm digging someone's, subhanAllah, home in the world, because the final resting place is the grave. before we move on to the next part. So when I used to dig these graves, I used to jump inside them, I used to clean them up, I used to make them perfect. Every little bit of dirt out of the sides of it. Because I used to say, this is going to be his home now. And I used to jump in the grave and I used to bury the deceased myself. And counting to this day, I've buried over 10,000 people. And I've washed over 6,000. And if I go back home and I drive past the cemetery, see, the cemetery that we bury in is the biggest active cemetery in the world and the third biggest in the world. And when you drive through this cemetery, it's got a train system in it, it's got bus system in it. Till this day, I go past those names and I remember on that day, that person, where I picked him up from, what his family was like, what the day was like. And sometimes I even remember what the weather was like on that day. And you move forward now and I bump into their kids now. I bump into their grandkids and I have a story to tell them always. And when you move in this world like this, always remember that subhanAllah, you're only as good as your last action. You're only as good as your last deeds. You're only as good as what, subhanAllah, what you die upon is what you'll be resurrected upon. So you fast forward in life and, life takes you many places. And, I had the pleasure and opportunity to see a lot of the world in the other side of this job, in, the bodybuilding side and the sports side, and mingled with a lot of the people that people dreamt of and, did all this stuff. But, I would always remember to myself the grave when I was in those environments. I would always remember when I was 18, 19 years old, picking up those deceased in body bags. And it grounded me. Every time I think I'm going to get to a higher level, it brought me back to reality. And subhanAllah, I fast forward to where I am today, and I think to myself, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that I actually don't do a job. Subhanallah, I do a communal obligation by washing the deceased, by burying the deceased, by shrouding the deceased, by organizing the funeral for a deceased. And, today we're at the Friday sermon, and Sheikh Muhammad Salah, he said a beautiful thing, and it was along the lines that equivalent to doing i'tikaf in the masjid of the Prophet, equivalent to that was the one who's of benefit, who helps someone through a struggle. And I think to myself, every single one of us has this ability. Because I say to myself, from the moment someone passes away, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for the family, and it's a struggle for everybody that's involved, from getting the paperwork on time and to burying them to the right time, the right place, and making sure everybody is aware of their death. There's a lot goes into it. And when I think to myself now, why did I start putting this on social media? We've been doing it for so long and nobody knew about it. But the turning point was, every single time I would bury somebody, I would leave the cemetery and I'd go back into the real world, and everybody would be talking about things that were so insignificant to what I had seen that day. Their problems were insignificant. Their issues were insignificant because you just buried someone. There's nothing bigger calamity than death. It's the ultimate calamity. Why is it the ultimate calamity? Because you can't do good anymore. Once you're dead, you're cut from this world. And I used to think to myself, everybody's worried about what they're going to eat, where they're going to go, what tiles they're going to put in their ensuite. And I've just buried a guy who's the father of a household, a mother, a child, and these people are worried about that. So one day I just turned the phone on Facebook Live and I went live. And subhanAllah, from that day on, I've been trying to show the world the reality of this world. What we've been told the whole time, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, that we are only here as travelers, that we are only on this earth for a day or part of a day. Because if you ask the deceased that's been in his grave for 1,000 years, he'll tell you, I feel like I've been in my grave for a day or part of a day. That's it. Yet we live on this earth thinking we're going to be here for a very, very long time. Sometimes I think to myself, subhanAllah, we all get tested with a lot of trials and tribulations in this world. It's never meant to be easy. Every day you get up, the tests start. And some of the ultimate tests, and from my experience, first it was my health, when I lost my kidneys and I had to sit on dialysis. And I remember being strapped up to this big machine 8-9 hours a day, 4 days a week, because I was a big guy that they had to dilute more. And I remember I grabbed the doctor and I said to the doctor, come here, what's this big machine doing hooked up to my neck for 9 hours, 8 hours? How much function is it giving me? And he said to me, it's giving you about 13% kidney function. And that was the turning point. I said, you know what? Allah had given me 2 kidneys that were giving me 100% function, yet I was unaware. I took it for granted, and now I have to sit on a machine so I can have 13% function. And I made that dua from then on, and I said, Ya Allah, if you do give me back my health, and you are the only one that can do that, then I dedicate my life to my Akhirah. I dedicate that every moment from here on will only be dedicated to building my Akhirah. Because the biggest problem us humans have is we hate to go from what we've built to what we've destroyed. We've all built this world. We've all made it comfortable according to our means. But what have we built in the Akhirah? What have we built when the day we pass away and we get carried on the shoulders of men, and a lot of times it's strangers carrying you and lowered in a grave, and a lot of the times it'll be a stranger washing you and lowering you. What have we done that'll give us ease in the grave? We've built the world, we've made it comfortable, but we've built it for somebody else to inherit. We've accumulated all this money for somebody else. We held on to it, thinking, I'll have another day, I'll have more time, tomorrow I'll give, tomorrow I'll do this. But I'll tell you something, tomorrow never comes, because there's always tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. But you know, you won't realize this until you get into the grave. You know, every time I bury a body, I usually find out the whole story about that person. And I lay him in that grave, and I turn him to his right shoulder, and I take off the straps, and I jump back out of the grave, knowing that one day I won't be coming back out of that grave. But today Allah gave me the opportunity to get back out. And I look around and I see the truck back up and dump the dirt on that deceased, and it takes about 13 seconds to be covered up. And then I see the people start walking away. And I remember what the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us, that you will hear every single footstep leave. And I always think of this every single day. And that's why I'm the last one to leave a funeral all the time. I am the last person, unless I ever had another funeral, I'm the last person to leave. Because I think to myself, he can hear the last footsteps. And I ask myself, did he pass? Has he passed? Did he pass the exam? Did he answer those questions? Has he got a window from paradise now? Or does he have a grave from the pits of hellfire? To me, that grave was dirt. You know, we look at graves, to us we see dirt. But that dirt is what we see, is not really what we see. Because when you're in that position, it will be either a grave of a piece of paradise or a grave of the pit of the hellfires. And I ask myself, subhanAllah, always, what was the squeezing of the grave for him? Was it like the Prophet, peace be upon him, described and put his fingers together like the ribs crushing? Or was it just a nice hug, like a mother that hasn't seen her child for a long time? If that doesn't make you tremble, then what makes you tremble? Then go check your heart. Because every single one of us is going to be there one day. Every single one of us. Every single day, names are popping up. This person passes away, that person passes away, yet we keep on saying, I've got more time, I've got more time. You know, until you bury your parents, you'll never realize what this life was about. You know, once you lose your mother, obviously one door of Jannah closes. But you'll never have the opportunity to say mum again. You'll never ever get to have that feeling of warmth that you had like when your mum was alive. I don't care if you are 60 years old. If your mum's still alive, you're still her little boy. That's the mother's rahmah. And then when you lose your father, you'll realize that you lost the only man in the world that wanted you to see you better than him. And you know, I remember just 4 months ago, I buried my dad. And as my dad was passing away, I could see his veil thinning out slowly over a 4-day period. And as his veil was thinning, he was seeing more of the unseen because of what he was talking, what he was saying, until he said the words, "Move, let the guests in." SubhanAllah. We were in that room. It's a very small room. And I knew that he had seen the angels. And you know, when his soul came out, and if you ever got the opportunity to be in a room when someone's soul comes out, you'll see how the life of a human goes, how the body changes, how the eyes lose their piercing, they lose that sharpness they got, because the soul has divorced the body, the soul has departed. But when it happens to the man that carried you when you were a baby, it hurts. And you know, Allah gives you the strength to deal with it when it happens. And I remember I went back to the funeral parlor, I picked up the van, and the paperwork I was filling out this time had my dad's name on it, not some stranger's name. My surname, my dad's name, his address, our home address, etc. You go there and you pick up your father in a bag, in a plastic bag called a body bag now. And you put him in the back of a van. And as you drive back to the masjid, to the funeral parlor, you think to yourself, this was the man that taught me how to drive. This is the man who used to wait at night when you get up to mischief, hiding at the back door when you're trying to sneak back in. Now you're taking him to give him his rights. And you know, I remember that you'll never forget the day of your parents' funeral. You'll never forget it. And I remember on the day of my dad's funeral, I had 2 other funerals. So I washed my dad first, and I continued to wash the other deceased after him, just like the rights of everyone else. Nobody is better than anyone. And I got out to spend a bit of time with my dad, and I led the janazah for my father. And I urge every single person here to lead the janazah for their parents, because nobody will make a more sincere dua than the child. And when I headed to the cemetery, I had 2 coffins in the car with me. One was my father and one was a stranger. And I got to the gates of the cemetery, and I had the choice to bury my dad first and the man second. And my dad's grave site was packed with people. And I looked at the other grave, and there was only a handful of people at the other man's funeral. So I turned to the other side, and I buried the other man first. I jumped in the grave, I buried this stranger, while I left my dad in his coffin in the car. And then I said to the man, "Adhamallah ajrakum, my condolences, now I have to bury my dad." And I continued to bury my dad. And I know that's what my dad would have wanted, because none of us are true believers until we love for our brother what we love for ourselves. And I'll never forget that day of putting my dad in the grave. And exactly like every other time I've done it, thousands of times before, except this time it was my dad. And when I uncovered my dad to give him his last kiss, you never forget it. Allah yarham all our amwat, Ya Rab. Allah yarham all the ones that have passed away. And then you get out of the grave, and as I said, the footsteps, they walk away, and people start to talk about where they're going to go eat, what they're going to do, etc., etc. And you're left with the burden, you're left with the heartache, you're left with the memories. But we know that, subhanAllah, they are the sabiqun. They are the ones that have gone forward. We're gonna follow them, don't worry. Our turn will come. Our turn will come. But we pray that while we are alive, that we can be an ongoing charity for our parents. Because believe me, the saddest thing I see is when somebody dies and he has nobody at all. He's cut from an ongoing charity. He's cut from waladun salihun yad'i lahum. He's cut from beneficial knowledge because he lived alone all his life. Some of the hardest sights you see is when somebody writes on a body bag unknown. And they're the ones I give so much more time for. Because I know to us, they're unknown in the world. But maybe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the heavens, they are known. Because my brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter what your status is in this world, how popular you are, who you think you are. What matters is what names are you going to be called when your soul is taken up heaven by heaven. What are they going to call you? The truthful one? Were you really truthful? Or was that just a name that people called you on earth? This is what you got to ask yourself. What will your name be in the heavens? You know, this world, your whole life, it's an exam. And a student, and we've all been students, we can relate with exams. You either pass or fail. And for a believer, the point of passing is simply a few words. It'll be either, O pure soul, come out to the forgiveness and mercy of your Lord, or O you evil soul, come out to the wrath and anger of your Lord. That's it. And every single time I get a deceased that's smiling. I get a deceased that has his finger in shahada. And this is not just imaginary. I see the videos. I see the lead up to the death. I smile because I ask Allah, give me that death. I've seen videos of people giving salams as they're dying. Who are they giving salams to? To the angels. Because they lived their life in salam. What will our time of death be like? What will our last words be? We drive down the road, something jumps in front of you, someone cuts you off. The first word that comes out, believe me, it's not a good word. So test yourself. When the unseen comes to you, because that's what it is. When your veil lifts, it's the unseen. And those angels come to you. What will your words be like? You won't talk. You're not going to say nothing. But test yourself. The next time you get put into a position where something happens, and that's called patience. And that's something that we lack in this world. We're so quickly to lose our patience. And that's why this world needs a lot of patience. Because in that grave, your tongue will not answer. Your hands and feet will not do anything for you. Your soul will answer. The way you lived will be the way you die. And the way you die will be the way you are resurrected. And you know, it is so true. Because I just look at the funerals and who attends. And usually when I see a lot of suits, I know he was a businessman in life. And when I see a lot of young people and you know, your hectics or whatever they call them, I know this guy was Mr. Gangster. And then when I see the simple people come, the humble people, the one who works 9 to 5 and goes to the Maghrib prayer with his child and he lives according to his means, I know that man was a man of the masjid. What's the crowd you want at your funeral? Because the first two, they're not going to benefit you. They wouldn't even know how to make a dua for you. You want people that know how to make dua. You want people that are going to ask Allah to forgive you, to make it easier for you, to give you steadfastness in the questioning. As the Prophet ﷺ told us, make dua because your brother's being questioned now. And this is why it's so important, my brothers and sisters, that we live this life, not lip service, but through our hearts and actions. Because I'm going to give you one true fact. Not one of us is prepared for death. And if death was to come to us today, tonight, are we ready? What do we take with us? And this is something that I can't answer. Every single person knows the answer to that himself. Are we ready to meet our Creator tonight? Are we ready to be in the grave tomorrow? You know, last week, I picked up a man from a shopping center last Sunday. And the story with this man was he went to the shopping center a week earlier. And he's an older man. And when he went back home, he told his wife, she said, did you buy anything? He said, no, I did see some nice pants. She goes, why didn't you buy them? She goes, oh, you know, the oldies, they sometimes hold back a lot. She said, no. Life is short, Haj. Whatever your eye sees, enjoy it, buy it. So he said, I'm going to go again next Sunday and I'm going to buy those pants. So he went last Sunday to the retail store. He picked the size he wants. He went into the change room and he passed away in the change room. The pants were just on him. He just put them on. When we went to pick him up, he had a medical condition, so we got onto the doctor straight away. When I took him back to the funeral parlor, I cut off the tag that had the security buzzer on it, the price tag, and I kept it in my box of props to remember that even, subhanallah, he went to buy him, he still never got to enjoy them. And these cases all the time. And the story behind this is, my brothers and sisters, don't procrastinate in life. Don't hold back on anything. If you want to do Hajj, do it now. You want to do a good deed, do it now. You want to give sadaqah, do it now. Do it now. Because sometimes there is no tomorrow. And this is what this whole life, what gets me is we think that we have so much time on this earth to lead up to doing things. Just the other day, I picked up a man who lives on a farm. He's actually the father of a friend of mine. Very good man. He was on a video call, laughing and talking to his wife at Umrah, and passed away on the video call. And I said to myself, subhanallah, a death can come at any moment. At any moment. He didn't know he was going to die on a video call. And I think to myself, this man had plans, and his son tells me, he brings me out his book and he says, look, my dad writes down all the dates of the week, whose house he's going to visit and whose house he's going to eat at. You plan and Allah plans, but Allah's the best of planners. If we can take anything from tonight, my brothers and sisters, take one thing. That every soul shall taste death. That's a promise. Kullu nafsin da'ikatul maut. And the only one that will succeed is the one that prepares for his akhirah. Because as the Prophet ﷺ told his sahabas, the smartest one amongst you is the one that thinks about death a lot and also prepares for it. Not just thinks about it, but prepares himself for it. So I'm going to ask for one thing from every single one here, please. Is start to learn to forgive one another. Start to let things go. The most blessed washes I ever wash. And after doing this for so long, I get a feeling now when I wash a body to ask the questions to the family, and they're usually the answers that I know they are. The ones that end up smiling when you've washed them and shrouded them, and I promise you they're smiling. Because when you first start, they don't look like that. But once you purify them, once you give them the ghusl, once you give them that right and shroud them, a smile comes out. They start to beam, the skin goes like baby again. And then you ask the family, tell me about your father. I say, my father was a guy that just used to be a peacemaker. Never held grudges against anyone. If any two had altercations, had differences, he would bring them together. He would tell them, let it go. That's what my father was. And subhanAllah, every single person that has that trait seems to have that blessed ending. Because they die with no grudges. They die with no resentment in their hearts. It's something we got to learn to do, is let it go. Forgive one another. I remember not long ago, I picked up a man and his son told me, my father, subhanAllah, he was a peacemaker. And the last person he spoke to was his brother, who was overseas. And he said to his brother, my brother, please reconcile your kinships with your sister. You haven't spoken for 10 years. And his brother said to him, if you call me about this issue again, don't call me again. And he hung up on him. That man died a few hours later after that phone call. The brother that hung up on him will live with those regrets for the rest of his life. It's very easy, my brothers and sisters, to let it go. The worst thing I see at funerals is regrets. Regrets are the hardest things I see, and I see a lot of it. I see people standing on top of dead bodies, spilling their guts out of what they should have done. But it's too late now. Do it now. Do it while you can. Do it while you're alive. Do it while the other person is alive. There's no use walking up to a bit of dirt and asking for forgiveness. It's too late. Do it while the person's alive. Save yourself the torment, the regrets, because we're going to have enough in the grave than to worry about extras like this. So my brothers and sisters, may Allah bless you and reward you all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our deeds. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this gathering and make it a witness for us on the day of judgment. And if one of us hears the news of the other, attend their janazah, please. Try to attend the janazah of each other and try to make dua for each other so that on the day of our death, Allah will send the righteous people for us. And visit the cemeteries. Go visit the cemeteries. Wallah, take your kids to the cemeteries. Take them and show them the reality of this world. Show them the baby graves. Show them the children's graves. Show them that this world is temporary.